The Mannaeans were an ancient people who lived in the territory of present-day northwestern Iran south of Lake Urmia, around the 10th to 7th centuries BC. At that time they were neighbors of the empires of Assyria and Urartu, as well as other small buffer states between the two, such as Mesazia and Zikirta. In the Bible the Mannaeans are called Mini. In the Jewish encyclopedia, Mini is identified with Armenia, but it could refer to one of the provinces in ancient Armenia, Mini, Ararat and Ashkenaz. According to examinations of the place and personal names found in Assyrian and Urartian texts, the Mannaeans, or at least their rulers, spoke Hurrian, a non-Semitic and non-Indo-European language related to Urartian, with no modern language connections. Location. Their kingdom was situated east and south of the Lake Urmia, roughly centered around the Urmia plain in this part of what is today named Azerbaijan region of Iran. Excavations that began in 1956 succeeded in uncovering the fortified city of Hasanlu, once thought to be a potential Mannaean site. More recently, the site of Kalaichi has been linked to the Mannaeans based on a stela with this toponym found at the site. After suffering several defeats at the hands of both Scythians and Assyrians, the remnants of the Mannaean populace were absorbed by an Iranian people known as the Maishana and the area became known as Maishan. It was then annexed by the Medes in about 609 BC. Ethnicity. According to the Encyclopedia Iranica, according to the Archaeological Institute of America, 1964, in the Bible, the Mannaeans are called Mini. The Jewish Encyclopedia identified Mini with Armenia, but it could refer to one of the provinces in ancient Armenia, Mini, Ararat and Ashkenaz. According to examinations of the place and personal names found in Assyrian and Urartian texts, the Mannaeans, or at least their rulers, spoke Hurrian, a non-Semitic and non-Indo-European language related to Urartian, with no modern language connections. History. The Mannaean kingdom began to flourish around 850 BC. The Mannaeans were mainly a settled people, practicing irrigation and breeding cattle and horses. The capital was another fortified city, Izirtu. By the 820s BC they had expanded to become the first large state to occupy this region since the Gutians, later followed by the unrelated Iranian peoples, the Medes and the Persians. By this time they had a prominent aristocracy as a ruling class, which somewhat limited the power of the king. Beginning around 800 BC, the region became contested ground between Urartu, who built several forts on the territory of Mani, and Assyria. During open conflict between the two, California, 750-730 BC, Mani seized the opportunity to enlarge its holdings. The Mannaean kingdom reached the pinnacle of its power during the reign of Iranzu. In 716 BC, King Sargon II of Assyria moved against Mani, where the ruler Asa, son of Iranzu, had been deposed by Ulasunu with the help of the Urartians. Sargon took Izirtu, and stationed troops in Parsua. The Assyrians thereafter used the area to breed, train and trade horses. According to one Assyrian inscription, the Cimmerians originally went forth from their homeland of Gamir or Uashdish on the shores of the Black Sea in the midst of Mani. Around this time, the Cimmerians first appear in the Annals in the year 714 BC, when they apparently helped the Assyrians to defeat Urartu. Urartu chose to submit to the Assyrians, and together the two defeated the Cimmerians and thus kept them out of the Fertile Crescent. At any rate, the Cimmerians had again rebelled against Sargon by 705, and he was killed whilst driving them out. By 679 they had instead migrated to the east and west of Mani. The Mannaeans are recorded as rebelling against Esarhaddon of Assyria in 676 BC, when they attempted to interrupt the horse trade between Assyria and its colony of Parsuish. The king Asheri, who ruled until the 650s BC, continued to enlarge the territory of Mani, although paying tribute to Assyria. However, Mani suffered a crushing defeat at the hands of the Assyrians around 660 BC, and subsequently an internal revolt broke out, continuing until Asheri's death. Also in the 7th century BC, Mani was defeated by the advancing Scythians, who had already raided Urartu and been repelled by the Assyrians, somewhat later destroying Mani. This defeat contributed to the further breakup of the Mannaean kingdom. King Asheri's successor, Uali, as a vassal of Assyria, took the side of the Assyrians against the Iranian Medes, who were at this point still based to the east along the southwest shore of the Caspian Sea and revolting against Assyrian domination. The Medes and Persians were subjugated by Assyria. However, the Neo-Assyrian Empire, which had dominated the region for 300 years, began to unravel, consumed by civil war after the death of Ashurbanipal in 627 BC. The upheavals in Assyria allowed the Medes to free themselves from Assyrian vassalage and make themselves the major power in ancient Iran at the expense of the Persians, Mannaeans and the remnants of the indigenous Elamites whose kingdom had been destroyed by the Assyrians. The Mede kingdom conquered the remnants of Mani in 616 BC and absorbed the populace.